Hello and welcome to another Uniko video with me, Bev, the owner and designer of all things Uniko. So today is the 11th, it's Remembrance Day, but it's also the start of our November VIP challenge in our Facebook group. Now if you haven't joined, I will share the link in the video. It's for Uniko customers to join. It's a private group, so if I don't recognise your name as a customer, I might pop you a message just for you to send me your email address so I can find you, or yeah, I just want to make sure that the group is for Uniko customers. Anyway, so the challenge this month is Christmas. Anything goes Christmas. And I thought it'd be fun to share an idea if you don't have many or any Uniko Christmas stamps, because I know that when it comes to Christmas, there's a lot of similarities between designs and things, and obviously we only use them once a year, but you might have obviously Christmas sentiments. I will talk a bit about some of the sort of the challenge rules as such when I get to them, but you might have things in your stash such as these background builders. So I've picked out 3 that are currently in stock: background builders seeing stars, background builders circles, and triangulate. And I thought I'd give you a simple sort of idea of how you can use these in a Christmassy way. Obviously, we do think of stars at Christmas, so that is quite generic. And I have used these in various ways over the years, in a Christmas way. So what I thought is I'd give you another idea. So I've gone ahead and trimmed some card. I've got this panel, which is I think it's 9.5 by 13, no, 10 by 13.5 centimeters, and then my usual 10.5 by 14. So I've got one of the smaller pieces, and what we're going to do is we're going to draw out a simple triangle Christmas tree shape. So I'm working on this glass board. I've got this new board on my desk and I'm quite pleased with it. I am getting some of the Stampin' Up grid paper back. I'll be picking it up at the weekend when I go and see the lovely Ruth, my Stampin' Up demonstrator. So I'm still a bit iffy stamping on glass, but we'll see how it goes. I'm just checking you in view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this ruler just to mark out. So I've used some temporary adhesive just to keep my card in place. Now I want to come up a couple of centimeters from the bottom, and I want to come down a couple of centimeters from the top as well, and then I'm going to do the same. So there's going to be a bit of rubbing out to do, but as I say, this is just another sort of simple idea of stretching your stash a little bit further. So I'm just going to lightly draw some pencil marks to do a simple Christmas tree shape. So sort of an elongated triangle. And then we're going to do some simple masking. And then some simple stamping. So I'm just finding the middle here. And then I'm going to sort of do it, probably go in by 2 and in by 2, and we'll see how that triangle looks. Obviously, if you have a stencil that does this for you, by all means do that, use that. As I say, I don't always go for the simple stuff that I know I can do easy, and I tend to buy stuff that is a little bit more fancy. So I've got some, so rather spend my money on something that I can't recreate myself than something that is easily creatable at home, because we all have to think about how we spend our money these days. So I've just got some copy paper here, and I'm just adding a bit of temporary adhesive, and I'm going to mask off this shape. Now I could use my stamping platform to stamp, but I quite like being traditional when it comes to stamping, and I use my acrylic blocks a lot, especially if I'm changing out the stamp. So I'm just masking off here. So I have this old one, I think it's a Paper Mania, yeah, the Paper Mania one by Do Crafts. I bought it ages ago. It came in a set of different shapes and sizes, and this one is perfect for these longer stamps. So what I'm going to do is get my stamps out, and all we're going to do is stamp a fancy random pattern across this masked off shape. We'll start with some circles. So I've chosen some Christmassy colours. I've got poppy, cranberry, evergreen, oceanside, buttercup and parsley. Obviously you can choose whatever colours you want. You could go rainbow. There's no rules as to colours. You can go traditional, you could go non-traditional. As I say, the challenge is anything goes Christmas, so whatever takes your fancy. I've got a random mix. So I've just lined up my stamp on that acrylic block, and then I'm just going direct with my colours. So these are Concord and 9th inks. They're one of my favourite brands at the minute for inks, and I just love the crispness of them and the bright colours, and I'm just stamping like this. Obviously I have got a damp cloth here next to me just to clean my stamps in between, and I'm just going to sort of variegate what I use from these 3 sets. So I have this fun triangle design. I might do that one a bit further down because I want to see a little bit more of the pattern. So I might use this outline one instead. The design is a little bit skinnier and smaller, so you're going to see more of the detail. So as you go further down, you're going to really see more of the pattern. So I've done cranberry. I'm going to use parsley now. As I say, you just stamp however you like with whichever background block. I'm going to have to stand up just a little bit just so I can see this a little bit clearer. Like so. I've overlapped slightly there, but never mind. It'll all work out good in the end, I am sure. So now I'm going to go to some stars. I'm going to use this solid star shape, and I'm going to go in. Now this, even though I've opened a new one at some point, I think one of my stamps was well overused and This set's been out many years. It's very rare I have to replace any of my stamps, but sometimes I open a new set if I'm doing a workshop or whatever, and this stamp hasn't been used, so I've just gone over lightly with a pencil eraser just so the ink sits nicer on the stamp rather than pooling on the stamp. And that's what I often do with a lot of my new stamps, is just run an eraser over the top, and it just helps that ink sit a little bit nicer, especially if your ink pads are juicy as well. It's a good little trick. There's quite a few that I've seen online people doing, but this one works well for me, so it's one that it's my go-to sort of like trick, I suppose. So I'm just changing out the strip patterns. Now, you don't necessarily have to use linear stamps like these. You could use shape, you know, the larger stamps here to create a pattern. These linear stamps sort of remind me of like the lights that you wrap around your Christmas tree, the tinsel, and how you embellish your Christmas trees in real life. So I thought that's why I've chosen the linear stamps. Now I'm trying to keep as straight as possible, but obviously sometimes my eyes go a bit wonky. At the end of the day, it's all about having fun and creating a colourful Christmassy design. We'll go back to the triangles, and I'm going to use this larger one now. And being creative, and often thinking outside of the box, how can I use this stamp in a Christmassy way? Just stretching your stash a little bit more, so you're not forking out on all these fancy Christmas designs, which are lovely, but sometimes, because we're only using them once a year, it feels like you're spending a lot on a season that you don't use very often. I mean, there's a lot of people that do create Christmas cards and projects and things throughout the year, but I don't know, I just love trying to stretch my stash and then treating myself to things like this lovely glass board because I've saved some pennies elsewhere. It's not always possible, but right, so I'm going to use this one on the stars now. So I'm sort of like rotating through the 3 different geometric shapes. But as I say, I tend to get into sort of pattern mode or come up with a system that doesn't always make sense to everybody else, but hey ho. So I'm going to use evergreen. I don't know, I like uniform, I like pattern, I like repeating things. It's just the way I am. So it's a bit of a process. You can speed me up if you want, as this is a recorded video. But you can also craft along with me. So I never really sort of edit my videos. I just put a beginning and an end on. I don't really have a lot of time to edit videos. But I hope you enjoy them. And that you can just sort of like craft along with me really as well. If you wanted to. So I'm going back to the beginning of my colours, and I could add in more, but I will just stick to these ones. Otherwise it just gets a bit chaotic with ink pads. So I'm going back to the cranberry and back to the circles. And it's getting a bit easier to line up now without standing up. But another way you could do this is you could trim out your shape first if you wanted a bit of dimension. I'm obviously doing a flat card here. I do like flat cards, especially at Christmas time, so we can get them through the mail as a letter instead of a large letter. It just saves a little bit on postage. With postage increasing all the time, it's a little bit difficult for us crafters to send out lots of cards, but I still like sending out cards at Christmas. It is one season of the year that I do send more cards out for. And see how here the ink is pooling a little bit on this stamp. It's one that I haven't used for a while, so it might just be that I need to just give it a bit of the pencil eraser treatment. So I've just wiped off the ink. You can see my pencil eraser is getting well used over the years and starting to break in half. So I'm just rubbing it over the top, and hopefully the ink will just sit a little bit nicer on the stamp. And then we'll go ahead and stamp it. Still a bit pooly, the ink pooled a little bit, but it still looks good. So I'm ploughing ahead. So we're back to the stars. I'll use this one. And we're back to yellow. So back to the buttercup colour. Obviously you could heat emboss as well. You could do this on coloured cards. So I could have chosen some green cards and then heat embossed these in metallics, for example, across the shape. As I say, you could cut the individual shapes out and then pop them up on foam adhesive to give a bit of dimension. So there's lots of variations of how you could do this simple idea with non-Christmas stamps. And then we've got one more, and I'll use this one. So there'll be lots of variations on this one idea really. And usually after I've done a video, then I do some other cards, so I'll probably share some of the other ideas on the Uniko Blogspot blog, and I will share the link in the video description, and I'll also link to all the products as well, so you can find them easy. So then we're just going to take the mask off. Obviously I use temporary adhesive, so it is easy to get rid of these sort of like adhesive marks just by rubbing your finger. You want to make sure that your fingers are clean, because I've done this before and I've had a little bit of ink on my fingers and then I've smudged trying to get rid of the adhesive. So just make sure your fingers are clean. Sometimes I get little bits of ink on my fingers. And then you're just going to go and gently rub the pencil lines out. So there is a I do have a set called Pattern Building Christmas Tree, which has similar. I'll see if I can find it in a second, if it's easy to find. A lot of my stamps, I usually keep them in alphabetical order, but some of them have got out of order, so it gets a little bit tricky finding them sometimes. But I've done videos in the past using Pattern Building Christmas Tree, and you will see it on my social media as well in use. Let me see if I can quickly find it. And that stamp, it contains images and line stamps to create your own Christmas tree, but they're sort of like variegated in size, so it makes it easy. Here it is. It's always the last one, isn't it, in the pack? So as you can see, this one, it has different lengths of stamp to create your own Christmas tree, but this one would work quite well doing it in this format as well. But you'd obviously only get partial, but it's creating this sort of like shape, this Christmas tree shape. But that one just came to mind as I was yabbering. So then what I thought I would do is choose a sentiment, and I think I am going to do Christmas wishes or Merry Christmas. I don't know, can't decide. This one has a little Christmas tree pot that you could use at the bottom if you wanted to, but what I was going to try and do is make my sentiment sort of be the bottom of my Christmas tree. I should have maybe moved it up slightly, so I might just do Christmas wishes, but it's going to be tight, so I might do Merry Christmas, so the small Merry and the larger Christmas. So in hindsight, I maybe should have done my sentiment first, but we won't worry too much because there's always a way around things. Well, I think there is anyway. And I used to be so hell-bent on, if it didn't turn out right the first time, that, you know, that was it, it'd go in the bin and I'd start again. But I've come to sort of, over the years, learn that it's all about being creative and learning from our previous makes, and if we're not completely happy with it, you know, sort of improving on it. And I don't know if you've seen that I have a new addition to the Uniko brand ambassadors, Natalie, Mama Seds, on Instagram. And Nat will make a card, which I love. Nat will make a card, and then if she's not completely happy with it, she will trim it up and repurpose it and make a new card from it. And I think that's quite creative as well. So if you're not completely happy the first time, either start again and make another one, or see how you can recreate from the one you've already created. So Natalie does lots of beautiful colouring, so obviously colouring can be quite lengthy and time consuming, that you wouldn't necessarily want to always start again. So I can understand why Natalie sort of has this sort of like process of turning the original card into something else. So that's an idea as well. So it's turned out not too bad. I'm actually going to balance it out a little bit, and I'm going to use a star. Now obviously I could use one of the stars. I will use the star. I'll use this star from No, actually, so there's, in Pattern Building Christmas Tree, there's this version, which is outline and outline. And then this one is a little bit more solid with an outline. And I wanted to show up. So I am going to use this star from Pattern Building Christmas Tree. So I'm kind of glad that I found that set. And I'm just going to use a little bit of card, an offcut. Now I might bring in another colour. I know it's a colour, it is retired, but it's still one of my favourites, and it's Marmalade, this lovely orange. And I'm going to do the star in that colour. I could have brought in a metallic, but as I haven't added any metallics to this stamping of this, I thought I'll just stick to colourful. Just stick to colourful colours. So I've got my trusty stamping snips that I use for fussy cutting. And what I'm going to do is just trim off some of this excess first, and it makes the cutting a little bit easier. And then I'm just going to leave a slight border as I cut. And geometric shapes like this star, which has lines, is a little bit easier on these smaller images. Makes life a little bit easier, especially if you're not into fussy cutting. But you could use an enamel shape, for example. There's lots of companies that do the enamel shapes in stars. You could use a little die cut. You could even use a more solid star and stamp over the top. Lots of different options. And maybe cut the excess off a little bit close to that point there, so it's not exactly a perfect point, but there we go. Learning to be not overly perfectionist. Just see there, the little point, it's just a little bit wonky. But as I say, trying to not be an ultimate perfectionist. And then I'm just going to use this 1mm thick adhesive, foam adhesive, just to adhere the star to my card. And it'll just balance out the shape a little bit and the distance between top and bottom. I know there is a bit of a difference, but still. But it just helps balance it out a little bit more, that it's not completely bottom heavy. And then I'm just going to get that off. Now, normally I would go ahead and add some more foam adhesive, but I'm trying to be conscious of obviously mailing out cards. So you can get away with about 2-3 millimeters sort of depth on your card, because then once you've put it in your envelope, you've only got sort of 5 millimeters to play with getting it through as a letter. So we don't want a lot of bulk, so I'm just going to adhere it with double-sided tape. Now I use double-sided tape just because I find wet glue a little bit I think it sort of puckers the card a little bit, and I've used double-sided tape for many years and I'm just used to it now, and it's my go-to. So use whatever you use. I use wet glue for certain things like adhering detailed die cuts and stuff, but I tend to just use double-sided tape. And I have a bit of a sort of like OCD obsession of cutting my tape. I won't just rip it. So that's why you see me cutting it. And then I'm just backing it onto here. You could choose a coloured base, but I've just gone for white on white, just so the colours shine a little bit more. But the whole idea really was to show you how you can use some of your non-Christmas stamps with a Christmas sentiment just to create a simple Christmas tree design. You could add a little bit of glitter, or you could add glitter to the insides of the shapes and things just to make it a little bit more festive if you wanted to. Lots of options. So basic rules are joining in with the Uniko VIP challenge on Facebook is the aim is to showcase the use of your Uniko stamps. So for example, if you had all 3 of the background builders but you didn't have a Uniko sentiment in like Christmas sentiment, if you used your background builders and then used a different brand sentiment, I'd be perfectly happy with that. The idea that the focus is Uniko, but for example, if you didn't have a sentiment that fit or whatever, I'm happy for you to incorporate other brands as long as the focus is Uniko. So I hope that explains it. You can make tags, you can make scrapbook pages, you can make gift packaging using Uniko stamps. So anything goes Christmas. So it doesn't have to be a card. It can be a tag or whatever you want it to be, as long as the product, the stencil, the stamps. Obviously there are some retired dies and dies that are currently not in stock. You're more than welcome to use those as well. I do hope in 2026 to bring back start bringing some more dies and bring back some dies back. I just haven't made the leap to China yet. I'm still procrastinating on it. I will get there in the end. Anyway, enough of my waffling. I will share more ideas on the Uniko blog. And I will be sharing what the brand ambassadors have made over the coming days on social media as well, so watch out for them. And yeah, thank you for joining me today. I hope this has given you some inspiration to look at some of your other stamps and turn them Christmassy. I can't wait to see you joining in on the challenge, and I'll be back again soon with more to share. Bye for now.